What is your most embarrassing moment from high school? Ripped my shirt off after our varsity squad won an important basketball game, and threw said shirt into the opposing crowd. This was in a very conservative community close to the Amish. I had to be escorted out of the building. I accidentally sat in someone else's car after school, thinking it was my mom's car. I even buckled my seatbelt before looking to my right and seeing a baby, and looking to the front and seeing a horrified woman. I apologized quickly and ran out only to see that my mom's car was the one behind it. I had to have a lunch date in front of the entire school with a random girl. 2 names picked out of a hat. My teacher called someone to come do a problem on the board. I wasn't listening to who it was and decided to be funny and do the game show voice saying walk on down. The person they called on was one of the few people in the school in a wheelchair, straight face. I had a really bad friend group freshman and sophomore year, and I think the way I let them treat me was just humiliating. I didn't have any respect for myself. They were a group of narcissists and I basically just let them pick on me non-stop. They could have thrown their drinks at me and I'd still show up to their lunch table the next day. Which happened. I'm in a better place with much better people now BTW. During high school I got sick a lot and doctors couldn't figure it out for the longest time. I ended up missing almost half of the school year during junior year, so my guidance counselor met with me and my parents and put together a plan to help keep me on track with the rest of my class. One day we finally got a diagnosis and a prescription and I had never felt better in my life. Once my guidance counselor got the news, she sent out an email with my permission to all my teachers so that could understand my situation. Most were very understanding. But when I went into my AP art class, which was filled with upperclassmen, my art teacher looked upset. When I spoke to her, she asked me about where I had been and claimed I was skipping class and the prescription I had on me were drugs I was taking to get high. I broke down into tears in front of everyone. I felt so humiliated. I already felt terrible about constantly getting sick and missing schoolwork. Thankfully, when my counselor found out about this, she had a private meeting with my art teacher and she backed off. I cried the very first time I reprimanded by a teacher. Sophomore year, grade 10 and 14Y/0, my English teacher gave me detention to make an example out of me in front of the whole class. After a few minutes I could hardly see or breathe with how ugly I was crying. She ended up feeling bad because it wasn't that serious and said I didn't have to go to detention anymore. I stepped outside for a minute to try and compose myself and ended up waiting 30 minutes until that period was over so I could avoid everyone, grab my things, and leave for the next class. It was high school orientation day and these 2 teachers were talking in front of about 80 kids and made up a little game to make it more exciting. Whenever they said the word Hulk, everyone has to jump up and yell smash. It was all good except I felt I wasn't putting my all into it and wasn't yelling loud enough. So I was so focused on getting ready for the next smash that I mistook the word hole as Hulk and proceeded with all my might to be the only one to jump up and scream smash at the top of my lungs. The teachers looked at me like I had just killed someone. Utter shock. It tainted my whole future and I have never recovered. Had a substitute teacher in Spanish my senior year. She was reading lesson plans for the hour verbatim from what our real teacher had left, basically a movie day. We had a poster to work on for an upcoming project though, so she said something like, "While you watch the movie, you may work on your visual." So without skipping a beat, I stood up, grabbed my crotch, and said in response, "How about you work on this visual?" Then I sat back down. The class was silent. Like 4 or 5 of my friends were just staring at me, heads either tilted to the side or jaws on the floor. The sub stared blankly for what felt like an hour, but eventually began to chuckle, at which point the rest of the class collectively exhaled and began to laugh too. I'm not a class clown and that moment wasn't at all consistent with something I'd ever do. "How about you work on this visual?" Stuck around as a punchline for a few years. Still don't know what happened. Asked a girl if I could sit with her. She straight up said no. A year later we dated for a short while. Had to act out a play in front of my English class senior year. I already hate doing public speaking enough, so it certainly didn't help that the class was being rude to us. Embarrassed the heck out of me. Like I was seriously tearing up while trying to get through my lines. French class. 1992 or 93. I had the biggest crush on a guy in my class. We were both standing at the front at the teacher's desk. I was wearing a skirt. And on my period. Then it happened. A drop of menstrual blood somehow bypassed my pad and panties. And fell to the floor. Right in front of my crush. I immediately put my foot on it. He either didn't notice or was too polite to say anything. But I wanted to die. I was the chunky kid in middle school and I wanted to get fit. So one day in gym class I decided I was going to start running. When I was running I tripped on my poorly knotted shoelace and fell off of the treadmill. What was extra embarrassing is that I held on for a solid 20 seconds before letting go, begging for help. All my friends laugh and still bring it up to this day. I asked a girl out to the movies when I was 17. She said sure. My mom, stepdad, and brother all went to the theater too, to see a different movie. I got stood up and they all saw it happen. I learned later she had run away from home with her girlfriend. That one stung. When I was in my sagging the pants phase, the inevitable happened. I forgot my binder in class and had to go into a class that already started. I got my binder from RHE back of the room. Now this is where I realized I was screwed. Pants decide to fall dangerously low, so I am now waddling in the back of class. Arms full of school stuff. Get right in front of a guy's desk and guess whose pants fall to his ankles. I quickly drop my stuff on his desk and pull my pants up so fast I hit my nuts. Make eye contact with the teacher and thank God she acted like nothing happened and have everyone see that. I have a few. Though the worst I suppose is when I squatted down to pick up something for one of my teachers and my shorts split down the middle. Oh ducking God. I hate you for reminding me of this occasion. I was in a class where most classmates were kinda dicks to me, including my teacher. The last day of class I requested to read a paper I had prepared. I was given permission and then proceeded to roast every individual of the entire class one by one. Oblivious to the fact that I was not getting good reactions. Halfway through the teacher tried to stop me saying, "Okay, that's enough," but I said, "Oh, hold on. I'm almost done," and he stepped back saying, "Good." Then I roasted the teacher, basically calling him a dickhead. Some of my roasts of classmates included racial slurs and calling people assholes, and I felt so funny and proud of myself. I think at the time I had been watching too much Comedy Central roasts and figured it was appropriate and accepted behavior to everybody. I got no responses and everyone just looked like they were cringing to death. But it's weird how I didn't feel the embarrassment or see the third perspective on the whole situation until years later. Maybe I'm not describing it in a way that makes it sound too horrible. But thinking back on it gets me absolutely mortified, and whatever I'm doing, whether I'm at work or home, I stop whenever I remember this and just stare blankly into the distance, dead in my track for a while, like I'm paralyzed with regret. This was freshman or sophomore year, and I asked the girl I liked if she wanted to be my partner for whatever project we had in class. Her response was, "You gross." I didn't know how to respond, so I didn't. Pretty much one side of the room was laughing at me. Then later on the other side as it got passed around. This was just after the Virginia Tech shooting. Got pulled out of the middle of math class. Hauled down to the principal's office, where my parents, divorced, were both waiting along with a police officer to discuss alleged threats I had made to the school. I've never threatened anyone. Ever. Never wanted to hurt anyone. I wanted nothing more than to graduate and leave that shithole town for good to start the rest of my life. Talked about video games a lot. Maybe someone misheard something and freaked out. But otherwise no ducking idea where it came from. Somehow it spread around school as to what happened. As if being a nerd in a small rural school wasn't alienating enough. So yeah, getting hauled out of class and being accused of planning a mass shooting is probably the most embarrassing moment. During probably sophomore year, I had a severe case of baby face. At the time, I was also interested in a particular anime with a character with notoriously exaggerated features. Combining these two things together led to my solution of having my mom draw on very dark eyebrows about 3/4 inch thick on me. I threw sand on my boyfriend trying to be funny, and him alongside everyone at the table just looked at me. He went to the bathroom to wash off, and one of our mutual looks at me and went, "That wasn't funny." Actually, that was very annoying. I was going through a lot at home and wasn't reacting properly to any situation at all. Really. I had to sit there and pretend I wasn't holding back tears. Awful. Self-induced. We had a custom called Senior Day. The seniors got their grade averages for their 4 years, announced where they were going to college, and then partied for the rest of the day. My average was 172, bad even by the standards of a party animal. I wanted to go home early, so had my dad text me, "It's okay if you leave," and showed it to the receptionist. We were a pretty chill school. Forgot that the last thing my dad texted me was, "Are you hungover LOL," and showed that to my receptionist. Went to a friend's house party and got pretty drunk off of 6 beers. I passed out at the party thinking I'd be safe, but woke up with my eyebrows completely shaved off. I skipped school a lot, and times I did go I kept my bangs over my eyes looking like a complete idiot. I wish my friends at the time didn't do that, cause I failed some classes cause I was super embarrassed to go to school every day for months until my eyebrows came back. Not high school but infant school. My mom forgot to pack my PE kit. I had to wear a leotard from Lost and Found. Cried my eyes out big time. During sophomore year I started dating someone from my school sports team. My parents were very religious and didn't approve of her in many ways. Long story short, the entire team and coach became involved, and I ended the relationship and quit the team. It ended up ending or preventing friendships with lots of people. And it feels like, despite me moving to college and moving on, that is all people from my hometown remember me for.